The Ukrainian army has conducted a successful counterattack in the Zaporizhzhia region. This is reported in a report by the American Institute for the Study of War. According to analysts, the defense forces have advanced or held positions in the western part of the Zaporizhzhia region, specifically in the Kharkiv direction. And although the Russian side claims the presence of its military in this area, American analysts have refuted this thanks to an examination of geolocated footage of the terrain. However, in the Kharkiv region, according to data from the analytical resource Deep State, the Russians have nevertheless managed to advance near one of the settlements. We are talking about Piszczane in the Kupiansk district. Well, the hottest sectors of the front remain the Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka directions. According to the general staff, the enemy stormed the positions of our defenders more than 20 times in each of these areas. In total, 222 combat engagements were recorded on the front line over the past day. In the Odessa region, the black box of the Ukrainian fighter jet that crashed in the Berezivka district on August 10th has been found. The aircraft's flight data recorder was discovered by SBI, State Bureau of Investigation, employees. The device is damaged, but specialists are working on restoring it to retrieve information about the final minutes of the flight. As a reminder, the fighter jet was carrying out a combat mission to destroy enemy drones. During the operation, an emergency situation occurred. The plane caught fire and the pilot lost control. He managed to eject. The investigation is checking several probable causes of the plane crash. A criminal proceeding has been opened based on the violation of flight rules or aircraft operation. The final version is to be established only after analyzing all the data obtained. They did what the world thought was impossible. The Ukrainian Air Force broke the enemy's superiority in the sky and rewrote NATO military textbooks. Air defense forces shoot down up to 80% of cruise missiles and over 90% of Shahid drones attacking Ukrainian cities. Our anti-aircraft gunners neutralize enemy ballistics with just one interceptor missile instead of several, as required by standard protocols. Allies are stunned by the results of our pilots, one of whom destroyed 6 enemy targets in a single sortie on an F-16. At the same time, the war presents new challenges. The Russians are increasingly launching jet-powered Shahids. Ballistic missiles attack regional centers almost every night, and there is simply nothing to shoot them down with because the Patriot launchers are empty. So, what can be used to counter these threats? What domestic developments are already preparing a response to the occupier? And will Ukraine see its own production of missiles for Patriot systems? Watch this candid conversation between TSN correspondent Andriy Tsaplienko and the Air Force Command.
We must support the systems that we currently have available, and this is our primary task to ensure they work effectively. Second is to create modularity without increasing the number of systems. This increases the number of operators, the number of personnel. We know that our human resources are limited. Therefore, we are implementing modularity, increasing the number of launches, and specifically changing their configuration so that these launches can operate against unmanned aerial vehicles, cruise missiles, and ballistic targets. And our third direction is, of course, working on the development of Ukrainian anti-aircraft missile systems that could eventually replace foreign ones.
So, for the secrets of protecting the Ukrainian sky, tactical tricks, the future of Ukrainian aviation, and what exactly to use to shoot down ballistic missiles, watch the exclusive interview by TSN military correspondent Andriy Tsaplienko at 10:30 p.m. on the United News Marathon. In Russia, the Ust-Luga port was on fire after a drone raid. This is the Leningrad region. The local governor says that their air defense shot down over 100 of our drones, but it is likely that they were shooting them down directly over the port infrastructure. Ust-Luga is the largest Russian port on the Baltic Sea and the second largest in terms of cargo turnover in all of Russia. Another Wildberries warehouse near Tver was also damaged. The Galactica shopping center was also on fire. This is occupied Yenakiev Donetsk region. And this is the former epicenter, which the occupiers seized from Ukrainian business. The night was also restless in Moscow. Local authorities reported 10 downed drones. The enemy did not sleep in temporarily occupied Sevastopol either. $100 million turned to ash because AFU drones destroyed an extremely expensive Russian Nebo-U radar station, which detected aerial targets, including missiles and aircraft, at long distances. Now the occupiers' blind spot in Crimea has become even blinder. At least one person was killed and 18 others were wounded as a result of strikes on the Kramatorsk community in the Donetsk region. The Russians turned the evening before into hell there. In less than 30 minutes, they dropped 8 aerial bombs on Kramatorsk at once. They targeted residential areas, including high-rise buildings. The victims were diagnosed with blast injuries and shrapnel wounds. Everyone is receiving medical assistance. The final consequences of the attack are still being established.
Are there more wounded? Right into a 9-story building. Let's carry them, get everyone into the car.
And in Kherson, several neighborhoods have been left without power due to another Russian attack. The enemy is attacking the city with aircraft. Industrial enterprises and social infrastructure were damaged after the KAB guided aerial bomb strike. And due to a drone strike in the village of Novovorontsovka, a fire broke out, which rescuers extinguished despite the risk of repeated strikes. As of today, there are already more than 20 victims in the region. In the Nikopol district of the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Russians killed a woman. 2 more men were injured due to the attacks. One is in serious condition. High-rise buildings, private houses, cars, and a supermarket were damaged. Fires were burning after attacks in the Kryvyi district, and homes were destroyed in the Sinelnikovo district. Because of the Russians, a person was injured in the suburbs of Kharkiv, and a shopping center and houses were damaged. As a result of a missile strike on Belarusian, a fire broke out in an educational institution. It has already been extinguished. In the morning, the occupiers hit a private house in Stepanivka, a Sumy region, with 2 jet-powered Shaheds. A woman and her 9-year-old son died at the scene. 5 other people were injured, including the boy's father and grandmother. They are in the hospital with severe burns. And in the evening, Russia launched a strike on the Odessa district. A large-scale fire broke out at a grain storage warehouse. In the Bilhorod-Dnistrovsky district, a hotel complex caught fire after the attack. Both powerful fires have already been extinguished by rescuers. In Marhanets, in the Dnipropetrovsk region, Russians killed law enforcement officer Artem Kucher today, who was fighting FPV drones as part of a police unit. In the morning, he and his colleagues went out to repel an attack by Russian drones. One of the drones was shot down, but another hit the police officer directly. Artem died on the spot from his severe injuries. He became the first loss for the Dnipropetrovsk region's anti-drone police unit. He was 42 years old. The man is survived by his wife and 2 daughters. In Kyiv, at the Zaporizhzhia metro station, a new method for accommodating people on the platform during prolonged air raid alerts is being tested. The zoning of the space involves dividing it into 4 categories: for people with children, for people with limited mobility, areas for people with pets, and seating areas. To achieve this, navigation stickers indicating the designated zones on the platform during an air raid alert have been placed. The recommendations are intended to facilitate a more comfortable and orderly placement of people on the platform. Currently, similar solutions are being developed for other stations as well. The metro also urges passengers not to bring bulky items with them, such as inflatable tents or inflatable mattresses, as free space is very important for the comfortable stay of Kyiv residents in the metro during air raid alerts. And the number of people using the stations as shelters is constantly growing. For example, during the Russian attack on the night of July 30, 56,000 people were already hiding in the capital's subway, which became a record number for the entire time of the full-scale invasion. Furthermore, during some of the massive attacks on the capital, reports began appearing on social media that not everyone who wanted to take shelter in the subway during the shelling was able to do so. Some people were not allowed into particularly crowded stations by subway staff simply due to a lack of available space. However, the company's press service stated that after an air raid alert is announced, the stations are open continuously and operate as shelters for everyone wishing to take cover. In total, as of now, 46 underground stations of the Kyiv Metro operate as shelters during air raid alerts. Photos and videos of empty shelves after recent Russian strikes and the destruction of warehouses began to spread across the network. Posts about a shortage of food products appeared, and a food-related panic immediately began. However, the Center for Countering Disinformation says this is artificial panic and urges Ukrainians not to play into the enemy's hands. In reality, according to expert assessments, despite the fact that damage to warehouse facilities has affected deliveries to large supermarkets and chains, there is no food shortage in Ukraine. And the fact that there are interruptions with certain types of goods in some places is only related to temporary logistics problems. The affected businesses themselves have already stated, despite the losses, they are continuing to work, and by Independence Day, that is, in 10 days, they expect to restore the usual shelf stock. And what did this panic start from? Will Ukraine manage to avoid a possible food shortage? And what challenges are both retail chains and farmers who provide us all with food facing during the war? TSN correspondent Alina Lisova has all the details coming up.
A noticeable reduction in the assortment.
Only one piece each, friends, only one piece each.
Empty shelves in some places.
All the shelves in the stores are completely bare, and honestly, this is the harsh reality we are facing right now.
And signs with the inscription, "This product was destroyed by Russia." There used to be rows of vegetables here, there were a lot of tomatoes. Now there is only one can of gobi. And it's like this in many capital city supermarkets of large retail chains, especially in residential areas. Online, shoppers are writing, "The disappearance of familiar goods looks alarming," and they are comparing the situation to the spring of 2022. There are also those who are frightened by the potential threat of food shortages in the future.
Everything was bought up, and it turns out that new stock wasn't delivered.
The enemy is shelling distribution centers. They are shelling logistics and food supply infrastructure. They want to cause significant damage to food security in principle, precisely through shelling the entire trade chain. There are no grounds for shortages today.
The Russians actively began purposefully attacking food warehouses across all of Ukraine over the last few months. However, they caused noticeable damage to food logistics at the beginning of August, when enemy missiles struck large distribution centers in Kyiv and the region. At that time, employees were killed and about 100,000 square meters of cold storage warehouses were destroyed. It was from there that meat, chilled products, fruits and vegetables were supplied to major grocery chains in Kyiv. At the same time, economists reassure that the situation with empty shelves is a temporary, purely logistical difficulty for individual chains, which they are already working on. There are no general reasons for panic, they say, because other smaller chains, small shops that are numerous right near people's homes, or markets where farmers or private households bring their produce, can fully provide Kyiv residents with food.
First of all, imports are open. That's one. And the Poles will very actively occupy the positions from which the Russians will be pushing out Ukrainian business. This also needs to be understood. The second point, well, those recent strikes that occurred, they were on some food chains, but other food chains remained without any, let's say, losses.
But all the same, we must be prepared for any scenarios, officials emphasize. After all, the Russians can continue to strike at food hubs. Therefore, as they say in the Ministry of Agrarian Policy, it is currently necessary to decentralize supply, that is, to replace large distribution centers with networks of small cold storage hubs.
Do not keep large batches at once. Distribute them as much as possible and allocate them to ensure the uninterrupted supply of essential life-sustaining products.
However, such a scheme may increase logistics costs, and consequently, goods on the shelves may become more expensive. However, according to experts, sharp price jumps can be restrained by competition between suppliers.
The main factor in logistics is still fuel and distances. If we are going to talk about the fact that distances have to increase significantly, then this could have an impact. We will understand within a few weeks, because the products being sold today are mostly those that were already produced and delivered in advance.
Right now, everything is getting more expensive anyway. These are already customer complaints, and they coincide with official statistics, according to which prices have risen by 10% compared to last year.
Everything has gone up in price. Indeed. Fruits, vegetables, dairy products.
And what can I say? I'm a pensioner. We live as best we can. We afford what we can.
They will probably skyrocket soon. Our neighbor, who shells us daily, is helping us with that.
Experts remind us, for now, we need to prepare for the traditional price review in the autumn. According to them, at first, throughout August, Ukrainians will observe a seasonal decrease in the price of vegetables. However, already in September, simultaneously with the end of the harvest, prices for basic food products may go up.
We are currently in a war of attrition. We don't understand where the enemy will strike next, and this will undoubtedly affect price offerings. It seems the harvest for the borscht vegetable group is not bad. Let's hope that this year the Ukrainian food basket, at least for this group, will be inexpensive.
See how dry it is? We certainly have plenty of potatoes here, but the main issue we are facing is the size of them.
TSN is in Policia. This is a traditional potato-growing region. Instead of black soil, these fields have sandy soil. And, as the farmer explains, it is precisely this that produces the tastiest and highest quality potatoes. However, the traditionally rainy Zhytomyr region has become somewhat like a desert this year.
If it does not rain, and if there is absolutely no moisture in the soil, There is a very real threat that these potatoes simply will not grow at all.
Other vegetables are also sown here, as well as some grains. And besides weather challenges, they also feel other threats. After all, the Belarusian border is just some 24 kilometers away from this field. So because of this, in 2022, they planted vegetables here at their own risk. They are doing it even now.
We sell more than 15,000 vegetables per season, but there are problems. The problems, of course, are the prices for diesel fuel, power outages. Pricing policy right now, unfortunately, the price for potatoes is not the highest. Not the highest, the same goes for other crops. And vegetables are a process that requires a full cycle, all year round. We plant in the spring and sell until autumn, until planting time.
Dumitru explains, due to low market prices and significant costs for sowing and cultivation, the farmer earns practically nothing from the sale of many vegetables. The only way out is added value. So this company also engages in processing. In particular, they wash and package. They also sell their potatoes to retail chains that were damaged during the recent shelling.
Of course, the situation in the warehouses will be difficult and terrible now. They work the entire season and put this harvest, which is worth a certain amount of money and effort, into storage. And of course, these are risks.
Despite the drought and potentially lower yields, Dumitru says the harvest should be sufficient. However, he will know for sure in September.
And all of Ukraine, it's not just us. The task is to believe, to hope that everything will be fine.
Alina Lisova, Andrei Romano, Oleksiy Osipchuk and Anatoly Korob. TSN 1+1 Marathon United News.
In Latvia, fighter jets shot down an intruder drone overnight, while in Romania and Bulgaria, debris from unknown UAVs was found. On the night of Friday, an air raid alert was declared in Latvia. Turkish F-16 fighter jets based in Estonia and Italian Eurofighters patrolling the skies over all Baltic countries were scrambled. Eventually, one of the jets shot down the drone. Its origin was not announced. There are no casualties or damage. The country's Minister of Defense stated that the drone was shot down because it posed a potential threat to local residents. The fall of an object was also reported today in Romania. The drone landed in a forest 5 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. According to the Defense Ministry, the aerial target was not detected by radar surveillance systems because it was flying at a very low altitude. Meanwhile, on the Black Sea coast in Bulgaria, drone debris was found in several locations at once. The country's Navy suggests that one of the findings is a reconnaissance drone. It, like the other parts, will now be examined at a naval base. Russia has rejected Turkey's proposal for a truce in the Black Sea. The spokesperson for the enemy's foreign ministry considers it inappropriate for Moscow to return to the so-called Black Sea Initiative, which existed in the first years of the full-scale war, but was ultimately disrupted by Moscow. Zakharova also stated that the Russian side had not received any proposals from Ankara at all regarding the implementation of a moratorium on military actions in the sea. Meanwhile, her boss, Sergei Lavrov, even accused Turkey as well as the United States of failing to react to Ukrainian attacks in the Black Sea. And Lavrov's statements did not stop there. He emphasized that Russia is not considering the possibility of ending the war in Ukraine along the current front line because, as he claims, this could devalue the heroic deeds of their grandfathers and great-grandfathers. Well, and Ukraine has applied sanctions to entities involved in the illegal export of Ukrainian grain. Volodymyr Zelenskyy signed the corresponding decree, which put into effect the decision of the NSDC. At the Security Council 2 days earlier, a list of 13 maritime vessels using the flags of Russia, Panama, Belize, and St. Kitts and Nevis was determined. The sanctions package also included 11 citizens of the aggressor country and another 28 legal entities. Sanctions have also been imposed against the owners of these vessels and their captains, as well as companies involved in the export of our grain. Ukraine will provide all necessary information to partners to synchronize sanctions in international jurisdictions, President Zelenskyy noted. Next, let's listen to his traditional evening address.
Dear Ukrainians, dear Ukrainian women, today there were many questions, and specifically military questions. A report from the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Drought. We determined the steps and means to strengthen the directions of Sloviansk and Kostiantynivka. I want to thank all our units that are destroying the occupier, countering Russian assaults and Russian infiltration. I am counting on there being no fewer than 30,000 destroyed occupiers now in August. Today we spoke with Minister of Defense Kamara about our need for drones and the technological component. We discussed the issue of finances for the army in detail with him and at the staff meeting. We need to fill the deficit as much as possible. The volume is significant. In the first half of the year, there were significantly higher expenses. This is a new challenge. Now, to find the necessary finances, additional finances, we will be talking with our partners. I also count on the government of Ukraine, together with parliamentarians, to work in such a way that Ukraine receives the necessary funds. The technological level of our army and our defense operations must continue to grow. And only in this way, thanks to all the decisions from last autumn, political decisions, financial decisions, the technological choice we made a year ago, we were able in winter, we were able in the spring of this year to move to a much more technological defense. The long-range sanctions plan is being implemented, and more of our mid-strike as well. In fact, we have worked on blocking the Russian south and are expanding this strategic operation. We are expanding it quite justly in response to Russian strikes on our ports, on our cities. And every level of pressure on Russia must lead this country, their society above all, to the desire to end their war. Our sanctions against Russian oil refineries, their Russian oil sector facilities, our mid-range strikes on Russian military logistics, our operation in the waters of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov, all of this works to limit Russia's war potential. It is important to continue this with more active political and legal actions as well. Today, there is a Ukrainian sanctions package against companies and vessels that are exporting grain and other goods stolen from the temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine. We are preparing new sanctions packages against the Russian military industry, against financial chains and intermediaries. Unfortunately, a significant number of Russian enterprises working for the war are still not under global sanctions. And this must be corrected during August and September. We will be talking with leaders at all working levels. A direct task for Ukrainian diplomacy in significant jurisdictions around the world, those companies and individuals from Russia, those individuals who help Russia, whose influence really matters in terms of prolonging this war and the production of Russian missiles and drones, must be under sanctions. And one more thing. We are continuing our work for air defense for Ukraine, for the missiles needed to protect lives, and for agreements to facilitate production within Ukraine. All of this will happen. It is not easy, but all of this will happen. During the war, we have already spoken many times about weapons, resources, and equipment that we were initially told were supposedly impossible, and then heard that Ukrainians supposedly wouldn't be able to handle them because it would take decades to be able to. F-16s, the production of millions of drones per year, special missile technologies, and we were able to do it. It will be the same with anti-ballistic defense. It will be the same with Patriots in Ukraine. But every delay, which unfortunately exists at the political level, simply costs lives. It is important to be fast, to have all forces directed towards protecting life and limiting Russia's resources for the war. The aggressor must feel that the world exists and that the world truly exists and acts to end the war rather than just watching the war continue. I thank everyone who is truly helping us, helping Ukraine. I thank everyone who is defending us, who is defending Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine.